In a future where your life is only a cog in the machine, when that cog is no longer needed, what life is there for you? This story follows a young man fallen into shadow among a system that has betrayed him. Turgan Kalpmo, a talented young man, perhaps too much so. Not through arrogance, however, but the simplicity of a bureaucratic system makes even the smallest deviation fall short. One small misunderstanding and the system had failed him. Devoid of income, lost of work, he turns to places beneath the radar of such systems. The stellar neon of endless signs and promotions washes the night of this grand neo-megacity, endowing the name with its meaning, Nocturnum Illuminus, one of the few remaining functional civilizations of the era. The endless clouds, the near-constant rain, the hum of lights and movement, the gray of day fading into the stale black mixed with dull orange and green, with the light's reflection. The sky, a sickening reflection of the feats man accomplished. Turgan sat in the small steps of what could barely be called a porch outside his rather beautiful but small and cozy abode, a simple two-bedroom, one-story rancher. Bigger than an apartment, but not by much. It was enough. He felt a small hand on his shoulder, and it brought him back to reality. Menma spoke up as Turgan turned towards her. "Still up? Come here, little mite," Turgan said with a sly grin. He moved so fast she had no chance to respond. Picking her up by her arms, her almost weightless body moving at his command, she giggled and laughed as he spun her around his head, waving her up and down, then throwing her into the air and changing from grabbing her arms to her legs and swinging her around even more before dropping her back on the ground. More, please!" "Sorry, little one, it's getting late. I'll come tuck you in again." They held hands as Turgan led her back to her room and tucked her in. "You want to hear a story to fall asleep?" She nodded profusely. Okay, here goes. A while before you were born, almost over a decade ago, before the sky cried, when the sun shone bright. Her eyes lit up at that mention of the sun. She had seen it outside the city a few times, when he had managed to get time off to take her on vacation. He told her of the sparkling city of life, the time before the fall, before the world turned to darkness. He was lost in the story himself before he realized Menma was asleep. He kissed her forehead and moved into the kitchen to prepare a cup of water. The filter had completed its rotation and there was almost a liter of drinkable water. He poured it into a cup and sat down at the table. The weight of the future pressing down on him, he opened the menu on his BioLink port. All the applications rejected, from jobs to welfare to support groups. No one but out there really cared. It was all just for appearances. He had heard of the deposed, people who had been essentially eliminated from society slowly and quietly, discarded by the people they built up, supported. Now, he had but one choice for the skills that he possessed. The rain tasted metallic on his tongue as Turgan stepped deeper into the underbelly of Nocturnum Illuminus. Towering spires loomed above, their neon veins pulsing like infected arteries. He followed the flickering arrow painted on a rusted bulkhead, a crude invitation to the under-alley. A dented service door hissed open. Bass-heavy music slithered out like wet smoke, thick with chemical smoke and the sour, sweet reek of synth alcohol. Inside the club was a writhing cavern of chrome and flesh, holographic dancers twisted in midair, their bodies stretching and melting at the edges. No authority marks, no cameras, just bodies pressed together, eyes glowing with cheap implants. Turgan found a stool at the far end of a bar made from salvaged plating. He ordered something cheap and bitter. The bartender, a man whose jaw seemed to unhinge slightly when he smiled, slid the glass over. "Rough night, brother? This one's on the house. Helps with the weight." He winked at Turgan and tapped the glass. Something a little extra. Turgan never tried, so he decided this one time. Here we are, why not? And Turgan drank. The liquid burned going down and spread like warm oil through his veins. At first, it was gentle. Edges of the room softened. The pulsing lights began to breathe. Slow, rhythmic expansions and contractions. The music stretched into long, dripping notes that crawled inside his skull. And then something snapped. Was it his personage, his memories, his skills, his training, his understanding of the world, his depression, fallen from grace? A small piece of his mind latched on to something that would bring an end to it all. He blinked, and when his eyes opened again, the patrons around him had changed. Their skin was no longer skin. It rippled, it bubbled. Veins rose to the surface like black cables under translucent membrane, pulsing in time with the music. Thoughts of wars of past and deeds done over his mind. Were these the traumas of himself coming to light, being manifest into the world? Was this really his own mind, or the reality he now faced? One woman turned toward him, and her face split open into a jagged smile that kept splitting, rows of teeth blooming where there should have been only gums. Her eyes swelled, becoming glossy black orbs that reflected 1,000 tiny versions of Turgan. He stood up too fast. The floor tilted like the deck of a ship in a storm. His balance caught him instantly, feet planted, core tight, hands loose and ready. The motion felt natural, automatic. The hallucinations surged. A man beside him reached for a drink, but his arm elongated, bones cracking and reforming as it stretched across the bar like a pale tentacle. Fingers split into writhing digits that tapped nervously on the counter. When Turgan looked down at his own hands, his knuckles were swelling, skin stretching thin until he could see the dense cords of muscle and tendon beneath, twitching with every heartbeat. The air thickened. Every breath felt like an inhaled, wet squelch of meat. The smell of foreign pushed through the crowd. Bodies brushed against him. The sweat and stank of such a place. Where had he gone? Where was he? His memories folding into reality. In the death dens coming towards him. And his skin crawled as if something was trying to burrow in it. The dancer pressed close. Her chest cavity was open, ribs flayed outward like petals, revealing a slowly beating heart that glowed with sickly green light. She whispered something, but the words came out as wet clicking sounds, her tongue splitting into two writhing halves. Turgan's vision fractured. The walls of the club began to bleed. Not blood, something thicker, darker, threaded with metallic filaments that squirmed like living wires. The ceiling lowered, dripping viscous fluid that sizzled where it hit the floor. Faces in the crowd melted downward, features sliding off skulls like hot wax, only to reform into new, wrong configurations. Extra eyes sprouting across foreheads, mouths opening vertically down the center of faces. His heart hammered with the calm precision of drilled muscle memory when the first demon lunged at him, a hulking figure whose spine had burst through his back in jagged bone blades. Turgan moved without thinking. His body remembered every lesson he had ever delivered. A sidestep, a precise strike to the throat, fingers driving into soft tissue that gave way too easily, bursting like overripe fruit. Black ichor sprayed across his face. It tasted like copper and burning plastic. More came. They poured from the shadows, limbs too long, joints bending backward, skin splitting to reveal glistening muscle underneath that flexed and contorted independently. One creature's head rotated 180 degrees with a wet crunch, grinning at him with a mouthful of needle teeth. Turgan became a machine. Every takedown was clean, economical, devastating. He used the environment like he'd trained others to do. A broken bottle became a jagged edge driven into an eye socket that popped with a wet squelch. A bar stool swung in a perfect arc to shatter a knee that bent the wrong way. A chokehold applied with mechanical precision until something inside the neck gave way with a series of wet pops. The music warped into screams. Blood, or whatever passed for it, painted the walls in long, dripping arcs. Bodies piled up, twitching, their limbs moving in unnatural rhythms. Even after he was done, one corpse's chest continued to heave, ribs opening and closing like the gills of a drowning fish. Turgan's own body felt wrong now. His muscles burned with unnatural heat, veins standing out like glowing conduits under his skin. When he looked at his reflection in a shattered chrome panel, his eyes were too bright, pupils blown wide, irises fractured into jagged patterns like broken targeting reticles. He no longer knew where the club ended and the nightmare began. All he knew was the mission burning in his mind like a single clear directive: get home, protect Menma. The demons were everywhere. He shoved through the last knot of writhing bodies. The service door hissed open again, and cold night rain in his face like needles. Behind him, the under-alley continued its silent, bloody symphony. No alarms, no sirens, just the wet sounds of things that should not still be moving. Turgan stepped out into the neon-drenched streets of Nocturnum Illuminous, hands dripping, chest heaving, eyes wide with the certainty that the entire city had become hell, and he was the only one still human. The rain hammered down like molten needles, each drop hissing where it struck Turgan's hot, fevered skin. The neon megacity had fully transformed. Towering hab blocks twisted into colossal bone spires that scraped the sick orange sky. Streetlights bled downward in thick, glowing streams. Every shadow birthed new demons, hunched things with too many joints, faces stretched into permanent screams, limbs dragging behind them like wet ropes. Turgan moved like a ghost through the nightmare. His body remembered the protocols perfectly. Years of drilling elite soldiers in close-quarter combat, urban pacification and lethal efficiency flooded back in jarred flashes. A sterile training hall, bright white lights, recruits in perfect formation. Turgan's voice cold and precise. Again! Faster! No hesitation. Hesitation is death. He had built killers, not just soldiers, weapons, men and women who could clear a room in a few seconds, who could turn a civilian corridor into a kill zone without breaking a rhythm. He was the best because he made it simple, because he stripped away mercy, stripped away doubt. Only muscle memory and protocol remained. The day the system broke him, a routine audit, one misplaced timestamp on a training log, unauthorized escalation of lethal protocols. The words had scrolled across his biolink in blood-red text. No appeal, no hearing. Just immediate termination. Blacklisted, credentials voided, all records flagged. Same bureaucracy he had protected for years discarded him like faulty ammunition. All because a machine misread a decimal point. The memories burned hotter than the drug in his veins. He kept moving. Every step was drilled perfection. When a pack of demons surged from a side alley, their bodies splitting open to reveal glistening wet mouths lined with teeth, Turgan flowed through them elbow to throat, knee to joint, precise twist that snapped necks with wet cracks. One creature's arm elongated toward him. He caught it mid-stretch, used his own momentum to drive its face into the pavement until the skull gave way like rotten fruit. Blood mixed with rain, painting the streets in swirling neon patterns. He vaulted over barricades, slid under flickering security drones. Now, looking like hovering eyeballs, trailing optic nerves. His breathing stayed controlled, the same measured cadence he had taught recruits during live fire drills. In his mind, the city was the ultimate training ground, and every civilian he passed was just another demon wearing stolen skin. A pair of authority patrolmen rounded the corner, their armor glinting like insect carapace. Their helmets split open to reveal rows of compound eyes. They raised their weapons and morphed into gigantic claws. Turgan was already moving. He disarmed the first with a textbook wrist lock. The joint popped audibly as the gun clattered away. The second fired a burst of energy that sizzled past his ear. Turgan closed the distance in 2 strides, drove stiffening fingers into the soft gap beneath the jaw, then used the falling body as a shield while he finished the other with a brutal neck break. Efficient, clean, exactly as he had trained others to do. The memories kept coming, sharper now. Late nights, refining protocols. You don't fight the enemy, he had told his elite unit. You become the end of their story. He had been proud once, proud of how sharp he made them, proud that his soldiers were the ones called when everything else failed. Now that same pride fueled the slaughter. The Hab block finally loomed ahead, a squat, rain-streaked building that looked almost normal amid the twisting nightmare. Almost. Turgan's heart surged with desperate purpose. Menma must reach Menma, protect her from all of this. He sprinted the last stretch. On the small porch steps, the same steps where he had spun her around just hours earlier, a monster waited. It was small, twisted, wrong. Its limbs were bent at impossible angles, skin stretched thin over protruding bones, face a crumpled mess of features that seemed to melt and deform. It reached forward. It reached toward him with clawed hands, making a pitiful high-pitched sound that cut through the rain. Turgan didn't hesitate. One fluid motion, the same neck snap he had used 100 times in training simulations. The creature's head jerked with a sharp crack. His body crumpled instantly, collapsing into a heap on the wet concrete. He stepped over it without a second glance and shoved open the door to their home. In Inside, the cozy rancher felt alien. Walls breathed slowly. Furniture seemed to pulse. The air was thick and heavy. "Menma!" he called, voice hoarse. "Menma, where are you? It's not safe!" He tore through the room. Nothing. Then the kitchen. His bedroom. The hallway. No sign of her. Panic rose, mixing with the faded edges of the trip. The demons were still out there. He had to find her, protect her. "Menma!" The front door creaked open behind him. Turgan turned. Authority officers flooded in, weapons raised, rain dripping from their armor. Their faces looked almost human now, the hallucinations fracturing at the edges. "Turgan Kelpmo, do not move!" The world tilted violently. The fever dream began to crack and peel away like burning film. Colors bled back towards something closer to reality. The walls stopped breathing. The pulsing lights dimmed to normal neon glow through the windows. Turgan stepped outside onto the porch, confused, still searching, and then he saw it. Lying exactly where the small monster had fallen, crumpled, deformed, neck bent at a horrific angle, was Menma's body. Her small frame, soaked in rain and blood. Her eyes staring blankly up at the sick sky. The neural implant at her temple still flickered faintly, a dying spark. The last threads of the drug snapped. Turgan stared into the pouring rain, gazing at the sky, unable to look at what he had done. There was now a single simple will within him. With a grotesque, twisted smile on his face and a laugh upon his lungs, he lunged for the officers. The sounds exploded as they opened fire, and the lights of the world faded as his signal cut from reality. I know this one was a little bit darker than usual, going a little bit more personal, and feeling delving more into a character is probably a better way to pull you into the story, right? So, you know, I know we've been away for a while, but we're back, and we'll probably be doing a little bit less videos than normal, but we are back, we are here, and we are doing some stuff. It's because our backlog is currently gone, so I'm working on some new stories, some new format, and going over everything that we've kind of, you know, learned over the last, I'd say, 6 months with the channel and everything. So, yeah, expect more videos. Anyways, thanks for watching, appreciate you all, and thanks for making it to the end, and hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know what you guys thought about it, and, you know, if it was a little too much or over the top, or if it hit the spot. Anyways, until next time.